This is my second video update for the day, and in Greece right now we have a strike. People are striking, workers are striking because of the rising prices, the inflation, and the fact that people here aren't making any type of income. The salaries are not rising, obviously, are not rising to keep up with the inflation. As a matter of fact, the salaries are getting lower and lower, it seems, with each passing year in Greece. Welcome to the European Union, everybody, where they bankrupt your country and then they make you go along with ridiculous sanctions, which end up hurting your society even more. But, you know, this is what Greece has been going through for the past 10 to 15 years. A completely gutted, bankrupt country, all because we had to sign up to the European Union project. That is it. But today there is a strike going on, and as you can see, a lot of cars behind me. The reason for that is I believe the public transportation is not working. I believe they're on strike as well, including the metro and the buses. I think we're going to see a lot more of these types of strikes taking place because we're just at the beginning of this. Remember, Russia has only done one thing, and that is gas for rubles. Just wait when the Kremlin really starts to put the squeeze on Europe. Just wait. It is going to be brutal, absolutely brutal. And Greeks are going to suffer. All of Europe is going to suffer for this neocon, Victoria Nuland, Jake Sullivan regime change war. Europe is going to have to suffer for this. Ukraine is suffering for this. The people of Ukraine are suffering for this. But this is where we are. And so I'm going to sit down here and we're going to do an update with regards to Zelenskys and his recent interview with Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper. And we're going to talk about Victoria Nuland's trip. I talked about her trip to Turkey and how she's asking for Turkey to get more involved in the war and to not be so friendly with Russia and with China. They've even created a special strategic mechanism to make sure that Turkey is more aligned with the United States. We'll see if Erdogan plays along with that. I did that in my first video update. I talked about that in the update I made this morning. And we also had Victoria Nuland in Greece, and now she's going to be making her way to Cyprus. And what is Victoria Nuland up to? Well, what is the EU up to? What's going on? What we have is Nuland and the European Union running around member state countries trying to gather up all the weapons they possibly can to send them into Ukraine. Estonia is sending weapons, any types of weapons. I talked about how the Czech Republic is sending Soviet weapons, Soviet types of weapons to Ukraine. Obviously, Poland is trying to arm Ukraine as much as it can. You have Germany announcing yesterday that they're going to send more weapons, howitzer missiles and stuff like that. And we have Victoria Nuland, who was in Greece, and she's petitioning the Greek government to provide more weapons. Now, the Greek government has already provided, I believe, 4 airplanes full of weapons to Ukraine, which angered many Greeks. Greeks were having demonstrations in Thessaloniki. They were angry at what the government did. And there were even reports, which are confirmed, that Greek employees at the railway, the state railway company, were throwing red paint on the trains that were transferring the weapons to up north to Poland, and they were protesting the fact that Greece was arming NATO and Ukraine. NATO, it is a proxy war to kill Russian soldiers. This is going to be a black spotch, a black spot on Greek society for many, many decades to come. The fact that Greece is actively getting in a war to kill Russians. It shouldn't be involved in this war. Greece should have taken a neutral stance. We have friendly relations with Russia and with Ukraine, and we should not have gotten involved, period. We should have taken the Hungary line of things like Orban did and said, look, we're not going to get involved. But Greece didn't do that. Greece folded like origami. I mean, they buckled so quickly to the demands to send weapons. It was pathetic and sad. But they did it. And now they've made an enemy of Russia for decades upon decades to come. When we were like brothers, we were like, also with the Ukrainians, but we were Orthodox brothers with the Russians. And that's been completely destroyed in just a matter of days by the Mitsotakis government. Completely destroyed it. And the Russians are not going to forget or forgive the Greek government for what they did. But at least this time around, when Victoria Nuland came to town and she put pressure on Greece to provide weapons to Ukraine, any weapons that they had, the Greek government said they have no more to spare. Finally, some brains in the Greek government, they said, we just don't have any more. We've already sent four plane shipments worth of weapons. And so that was a positive move from the Greek government. At least someone in the government came to their senses, it seems. I believe the protests and the outrage in Greece paid off. People were outraged with what Greece did, and the government took note of that. All the government had to do when the first request was made is all Mitsotakis had to do was say the same thing. We have no weapons to spare. We need those weapons for our own security. You know, we've always got tensions with Turkey, so we need those weapons. And the Greek government could have said, you know what? We don't have any to spare because we're 350 billion in debt, thanks to the EU. And we need all the weapons we can. We have no money. We can't provide any aid. And that's it. That's all Mitsotakis had to say, the Prime Minister of Greece, Mitsotakis. That's all he had to say when the first request was made. Instead, what did he do? He sent 4 planes full of weapons to NATO and to Ukraine in order to fight the Russians. It was such an amateurish, bonehead mistake that he made. And while we're talking about Greece, and I'm going to get to Cyprus as well, because Victoria Nuland's going to be making her way to Cyprus. I believe tomorrow she's going to be there, if she's not already there now. But she's going to go to Cyprus, and she's going to force the Cypriot government to also give over their weapons that they've procured from Russia. Cyprus has purchased weapons from Russia. She's going to force the Cypriot government of President Anastasiadis to take all those weapons that they purchased from Russia and send them over to Ukraine. Like I said, their goal right now, Europe and Nuland's goal, and make no mistake about it, the EU is completely captured, completely under the control of the neocons at this point in time. Victoria Nuland is puppeteering and running this war. She is quarterbacking this whole thing. Her and Sullivan and all of these characters. And the EU are helpless, powerless to the neocons in DC and the neolibs. Absolutely powerless. It is completely sad to watch the European Union destroy itself in order to please Jake Sullivan and Victoria Nuland. It is sad to watch. Absolutely sad to watch. But that's where we are. She's going to be in Cyprus, and she's going to want the Cyprus government to give up all their Soviet weapons, all of their Russian weapons, in order to give those to the Zelensky regime to fight the Russians. And I say Soviet because, I mean, they're taking any type of weapons, it seems, the EU and the neocons, any type of weapons that member state nations may have. Soviet tanks, artillery, you name it, they're taking it. It's almost like, you know what it reminds me of? It's like when a hurricane or a natural disaster hits like a city or a state or something, a country, and everyone is just trying to collect canned food and clothes, anything they can collect in order to send it to the people. that have been hit by this natural disaster. That's what we're seeing here now. We're seeing the neocons running around every single country, telling those countries, you're going to sanction Russia or else you're going to get regime changed. That's what they're saying. Sanction Russia or face regime change. And they're also saying, we want all the weapons that you have to spare. Anything that you have to spare, we want it, and we want to send it to Ukraine. They want to create a prolonged insurgency, guerrilla warfare for the next decades to come. That's exactly what they want. And that brings me to this story from ETHEREUM, which has to do with Victoria Nuland and her ask, what's going to be her ask to the Cyprus government. And let me read it out for everybody. And it is saying that, according to sources, the U.S. is interested, this is what they're interested from the Cyprus government, the U.S. is interested in anti-aircraft umbrella of the Cypriot armed forces, Tor M1s, Buk M12 arrays, and T-80Us, as well as BMP-3 tanks. The National Guard of Cyprus also has Russian Mi-35 attack helicopters, which are for sale in Serbia. And the U.S. is going to take those weapons. The necessary preconditions on the part of the Cypriot side is that its Russian weapons are not given to Ukraine directly from Cyprus, and the U.S. armed forces will ensure they are replaced with available weapons. Moreover, the weapons will be given up only when the American weapons are received. Military sources in Nicosia said that there is a unique opportunity to replace Russian weapons with high maintenance costs and for the complete lifting of the U.S. military embargo. So that's what the Cypriot government is going to ask for. U.S. weapons to replace what they're going to give up. They also want one of the preconditions to be that those weapons aren't directly given to Ukraine and that they find some sort of a workaround so that Russia doesn't say, well, the Cypriot government is directly sending weapons to Ukraine in order to fight our soldiers. The Russians already know. This little workaround doesn't fool the Russians at all. So they're going to take their anger out on Cyprus as well. Keep in mind that 40% of Cyprus tourism used to be from the Russians, from Russian tourists. That's gone. Anastasiadis has sunk that industry completely, and it won't be easy to replace. Even though Cypriot officials are going to try to gaslight the public and make it seem like they can replace 40% of their tourism just like that, it's not going to be replaced easily at all. And that's the government of Cyprus President Nikos Anastasiadis. That's what he's going to be asked of when Victoria Nuland visits the island. And this brings me to Cyprus and Greece. They've gone along with all of these requests from the EU, and they've given no pushback whatsoever to sanctions, to destroying their own economies, to all of this that the EU has asked of them, while they have not asked anything of the EU in return. In other words, Turkey has laid claim to certain Greek islands. They've made those claims. They've even laid claim to certain areas of Greece up in the north of Greece as being part of Turkey. Turkey obviously occupies the north part of Cyprus for the better part of 46 years through an illegal invasion and occupation. And the European Union has not placed any sanctions on Turkey or have done anything to figure out a solution to this problem of an EU member state vis-a-vis Turkey. They've actually done the reverse. They've actually given Turkey money, but they haven't pressed the issue with Turkey in order to resolve the Cyprus problem or in order to resolve some of the Turkish statements towards Greek land. And our leaders, the president of Cyprus, the prime minister of Greece, it didn't once cross their mind to sit at a meeting in Brussels and say, you know what? We'll sign on to your sanctions against Russia, Mr. Borrell and van der Leyen and Mr. Michel. But before we sign on, we want you to solve the Cyprus problem. We want you to press Turkey vis-a-vis some of the statements they've made on Greek territory. We want you to place sanctions on Turkey. If you don't place the same sanctions that you're placing on Russia on Turkey, then we won't sign up to these sanctions. The Greek leaders didn't do any of that. They didn't even mention it. They didn't even mention any of this stuff. It just shows you how weak and empty our leadership is here in Greece. We're having protests right now. We have a strike right now because of the inflation. At this very moment, because of the inflation that these sanctions have brought us. And all of this is being done to the Greek people for a country, once again, and I repeat this, that is not even in the European Union. As a European Union country, we're going to watch our economy disintegrate for a country that's not even in the European Union because Victoria Nuland is telling us to do so. That's why. And people are on strike, but I wonder if the Greek people realize this, that you're going to be made to suffer and to become poor and to watch your country's economy go down the tubes for Victoria Nuland and for the Neocons and for Jake Sullivan, for the Clinton Foundation, of which their number one donors are Ukrainian oligarchs, or for the Hunter Biden laptop and Joe Biden. It's madness. It is absolute madness. And, the Greek politicians will tell you, well, we have to go along with this because if we don't go along with this, then the European Union and the United States are going to sink our economies. They're going to get the credit agencies to give us junk status, and they're going to make our loans unpayable, the $350 billion in loans, and they're going to do all of this stuff. Well, I've got news for the Greek government and for the Cypriot government that are going to throw that excuse out there. They're already doing it to us. They're already gutting our economies. So you might as well have asked for some sort of concession if you wanted to sign up to these sanctions against Russia. You should have gotten some sort of leverage, something out of it, instead of just signing up to it. And you don't even deal with your pressing geopolitical questions, your pressing geopolitical issues, like the Turkish problem, like the Turkey problem that both Greece and Cyprus have. It's incredible. It is absolutely stunning to watch how bought off our political class has become. We're going to suffer either way. We're going to suffer with the sanctions, signing up with the sanctions, or we would have suffered if we said we're not going to sign up to the sanctions. Either way, as a society, we would have ended up towards insolvency, bankruptcy, inflation, lower salaries, more unemployment. It would have happened in either of the two scenarios, so we might as well have told the EU, stuff your sanctions. We're not going to sign up to them unless you solve the Cyprus problem. The end result is the same, whether Europe decides to sink the Greek economy or the Greek economy sinks because Victoria Nuland is making us put sanctions on Russia. Either way, the economy is going to sink. The Cypriot economy is going to go down the tubes, either of the two scenarios, so you might as well have gotten something out of it. Anyway, Zelensky gave the interview to Haaretz, and he said that Ukraine is going to be like Israel. And it's going to, when all the dust settles and the crisis and the conflict is over, basically Zelensky said that Ukraine is never going to become a liberal European democracy like it ever was a liberal European democracy, like it ever was a democracy. And there was nothing of the sort. But Zelensky's reading his script, and he adapts and amends his script according to the country that he's speaking to or the interview that he's giving. And he said that Kiev is going to be like Israel in that when you go to a movie, you're going to have armed policemen and guards there, and they're going to do checks, and they're going to have checkpoints everywhere in the city. And of course, he's doing this to win the sympathy of the Israeli population after his disastrous speech to the parliament, where he claimed that what's happening in Ukraine is equivalent to what happened at the Holocaust, and people in Israel were outraged. Boy, his script writers really messed up during that speech. Zelensky's going to be speaking to the Greek parliament as well, so we're going to see all the bought off and paid off Greek MPs crying and clutching their pearls as Zelensky speaks about how what's happening in Ukraine is the equivalent to what happened in Greece during World War II or during the occupation of the Ottoman Empire or whatever he's going to say. So I'm sure we're going to get a really good show when he speaks to the Greek parliament. Zelensky his script is modified depending on his audience. That's it. If he speaks to the German population, he says Ukraine is like what happened to Germany, blah, blah. If he speaks to the US, well, then Ukraine is the equivalent of MLK and BLM and God knows what else he throws out there, Pearl Harbor. It's getting silly to watch. It really is. And you have to be absolutely brain dead to buy into it. We are seeing theater at its best. Acting, theatrics. And so that's what Zelensky said. And I'm going to leave this video on this note. Borrell gave a statement. Let me pull up that quote real quick. It's on Telegram. Borrell said this. Joseph Borrell, who is the very incompetent foreign minister of the European Union. He's like the guy that's in charge of, he's the equivalent of what would be a foreign minister for the EU. And this is after Estonia announced that it's preparing to send D-30 howitzers as well to Ukraine. Borrell said this in a statement. Where is it? Borrell. Gosh, whenever you want it, you can't find it. One second, everybody. Let's see here. Oh, Telegram. Where is it? Ah, here it is. Okay. The EU does not want Ukraine to lose, so it will continue to arm it. That's a statement from Borrell. It goes back to what I was saying in the beginning of the video and what I was saying in the morning video update. The plan for the Neocons is to just gather as many weapons possible and just flood them into Ukraine. And I believe it's not about flooding them into East Ukraine. They want to create a guerrilla warfare, prolonged insurgency type of condition in the west of Ukraine. I wonder if Russia is onto this. I wonder if they are on to what's going on. If they figured it out. I'm sure they have, but let's see how Russia's going to respond to all of this. But that's the plan. You know, this benefits in three ways the military buildup in the western Ukraine. I can see how this benefits certain groups. Three groups, not three ways, three groups. One is the military-industrial complex. I'm sure they're going to benefit big time from all of this this military buildup in the west of Ukraine, because all these countries that are going to be giving over their weapons, their old weapons, to Ukraine are going to need new weapons. And as the story of Cyprus said, where are they going to get these new weapons? Well, they're going to give up their Russian-bought weapons, and they're going to buy American weapons. It also makes the countries in Europe more integrated into the U.S. military structure. So they're more dependent on the U.S. Not only are they going to be dependent on the U.S. from a financial perspective, because they're gutting their economies, but they're going to be dependent on the U.S. from a military perspective, because all their weapons are now going to be from the United States. It benefits the black market dealers as well, because, you know, a lot of these weapons are going to make their way onto the black market. So all of these black market weapons dealers are going to make a ton of money. They're going to make an absolute ton of money. And it, as I've said, it prolongs the war, the insurgency. That's the goal, to try and prolong it. And by prolonging the insurgency, the hope is that you weaken Russia. That's your hope. Keep the sanctions going and keep an insurgency going. Keep the weapons flooding into Western Ukraine, and hopefully you can get that regime change, because the neocons are never going to give up. They are never going to reverse gear with their regime change plans and their regime change goals in Russia. It is their number one foreign policy priority. Regime change in Russia, regime change in China. That is the ultimate goal. And they're going to destroy Europe. If they have to destroy Europe to get it, they're going to do it. And that's what we're watching. The destruction of Europe, the slow motion destruction of the European Union and of European countries, including this one that I'm in right now. And the Greek population, I don't think they're onto it, if you want my honest opinion. They feel it. That's why they're having a strike with the inflation. And they're going to be on strike with the increase in prices and everything that's going on in the economy. But I don't think they've caught on to how it's connected to Ukraine how it's connected to the Neocons and Nuland, and how these Neocons have absolutely no problem destroying a country like Greece if it means they can destroy a country like Russia. So anyway, that is the video update. Those are my thoughts. Cyprus is going to pay a very, very deep and big price for the decisions that they're making. A price that I fear is going to be felt 5 or 10 years from now. But, you know, what can you do? And we've gotten nothing out of it. We've gotten nothing out of this. We haven't moved one step closer to solving the Cyprus problem. Not one step closer. We have no idea how to negotiate. No idea. Our final note is, if you asked me, I would tell Cyprus, Greece, and Turkey to forget the EU, to forget the United Nations, and to sit down at a table and solve your problem amongst yourselves. This is a problem that has to deal with these 3 countries. And I would say, you know what, get rid of all of these international institutions and these organizations that don't have the region's best interest at heart, and for these 3 countries to sit down and work it out. I think that would be the best plan going forward. But what do I know? I'm just a guy walking around Athens doing videos. Anyway, everybody, the Duran.locals.com. Take care.